Join us while we look at Sebastian Inlet State Park. Hello and welcome to Painting Florida, where we explore the natural beauty of Florida's landscapes. I'm Weldon Ryan, and tonight in this program we will explore Sebastian Inlet State Park in Melbourne, Florida. I want to let all our viewers know that this is a call-in show, so if those of you at home have any questions about painting, my material, or anything you've seen me do, just give us a call at 1-800-901-9238. Before we start, let's take a look at last week's paintings from the Orlando wetlands in Christmas, Florida. Now, of course, it was a gator. It's a blind gator, one-eyed gator. It took me a while to get that going. I created some depth by kind of subduing the background and putting detail in the foreground images with the floral, and of course the sky that we have going on there really works with that. Now that we've finished that, let's take a look at our next subject, Sebastian Inlet, one of Florida's famous surfing and fishing spots on the East Coast. Well, we have two pelicans, interesting subject matter, brown pelicans, and they're sitting atop some rocks and with some moss. So you've got a decent color scheme somewhat, and we'll make that work with an interesting background of the water. Now, today I'm working on a 18 by 24 canvas. The canvas has a thin film of the liquid white that's just to help some shading, some blending, really. I work with sable brushes of various sizes. My favorite actually is the brights, but you can use flats or filberts or rounds for that matter. It's a personal preference. Also, I have 2-inch and a 4-inch blenders, Bristol blenders, and I have a series of varied painting knives, which, you know, it's useful at times, and fan brushes, and let's get things rolling. All right. The other thing that I like to introduce, at least let you guys know, my palette is a landscape palette. The landscape palette, for the most part, it's extended with some cool and warm colors of various hues. And so let's see if we can get this rolling here. As far as when I paint, I think about composition mainly. The first stage of any painting has to go with composition. We have two birds here, two pelicans in the on the rocks. So I'm going to see if I can get that rolling as far as getting a decent enough composition. We have positive and negative space with basically the water and then the rocks. So let me dip in with some burnt umber and see if I can start getting myself situated. Just squinting a little bit to try to get an idea of where the birds are in relations to one another and the composition. So I'm just, you know, trying to get that dimension going. I mean, it might not always, doesn't always work out that way, but you know, as far as the composition, using the lines to get me going. But I try to work with major shapes. Everything's broken down into shapes. So I'm just going to begin my drawing right now, as far as with the pelican to the right. And this is just a rough little drawing. I'm using a number 2 Bristol brush. You know, it's pretty worn. It's one of my trusty brushes that I kind of like to use for this kind of purpose. I'm just working on shapes, the large shapes. Now I'm trying to get the proportion with the other pelican where it may intersect or at least it's a guide. I try to use the shapes and the objects that I have as a guide for things that's happening. Of course, you know, placement is one thing and that it'll always change. So I'm just working on that right now. Drawing is fundamental. I believe whenever we're dealing with painting, drawing comes first. And in art school, that's the first thing we learn to do, draw, because it's paramount to everything else we do in painting. I'm working on that wing, and really the pelican's body is kind of like roundish, kind of, if you can see that. So, and same with this. So you got these big masses of shapes, and we try to work with that. Now, working from photographs is a little tricky because, you know, there is some deception in the photographs usually, and you know, it's up to us to interpret the nature of that. The rock kind of continues. Well, yeah, it's a big rock. It continues this way. I like these gnarly pieces of wood that's on the side here, and it's actually pretty cool. Okay, that actually worked out pretty good. All the other information can be put in later on as we go along. The next thing that I'm going to work on is I was thinking on how to do this, but I'm going to work on the sky, or at least the water. And the color of the water generally is the color of the sky. So using actually a painting knife to mix this up, I'm going to get that going. But whilst I do that, let's take a glimpse at what Sebastian Inlet State Park has to offer. Welcome back. All right, so far what I've done was using a combination of colors. I'm using the cerulean blue mixed with white, some raw umber, and some ultramarine blue, as well as some hooker's green. And that really is just using the browns. I don't want the background to overpower the foreground images. So I've worked pretty lightly with that. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my rag here. And so I'm just going to get all the big shapes going, all right? You know, I like to, you know, block in all of my elements first before I really get into any serious work, because to me it's very important. Now, of course, supposedly you work from dark to light, but sometimes, you know, especially if you're an experienced artist, you might cut the corner a little bit. So I'm just going to actually select the color, analyze it, and then, you know, adjust as I go along. That's really the basis for laying down your colors. You know, we don't blindly do it. We put a little red in this rock mixture here, and just basic blocking. Oh, got a little black in there, but I want to get away from black, because I don't want to kill the color so much that it's useless. So a little bit of the burnt umber, the yellow ochre, and I'm going to go with a little bit of this Indian red. And we'll test the rocks here. Give you a little bit more. I'll put some purple in there. And like I said, I'm just laying down the foundations, blocking in all of the essentials. And I'm just getting all the dark spots first. And I'm looking at this area right here with the bird, the rock that's right in front. It kind of takes away. So I'm going to try to do it faint, because, you know, it's about composition as well as we have to think in terms of the art itself. You don't want to take attention from the main subject matter, which I want the main subject matter actually to be the pelicans. So I'm just using a broader brush to get a lot of that stuff happening. And then this gnarly piece of wood that's over here, using a little bit of the sky color and some burnt umber. It has a little blue in it, so I'm going to put, actually this is a little cobalt blue I have in here. I'm going to put some cobalt blue in there. I see some ultramarine. I accidentally mixed some of this yellow green in there, but it'll work. All right, well, we can lighten that. So Denny, you have a question?
Yes, sir. I was just wondering if the artist actually took that photo of the pelicans that he's painting.
No. There's a student took the picture, and you know, this is a student show, so they take pictures, and they basically facilitate the show. I'm just the artist that's doing the artwork for it. But any other questions that you may have? Okay. All right. I'm just using the the yellow ochre and some of the white, and I'm just working, like I said, on just getting all the information down, all the big blocks of shapes. Now we work from shapes and then we hone in on what we need to hone in on, all right? And that is, in essence, the nature of painting. So you have to be patient with it because, you know, you have to follow your steps. If you don't follow your steps, things can go a little bit adrift on you. And it's happened to me quite often. That's part of being an artist anyway. So you're just going to have to deal with those aspects of the art. That is the nature of the art. I like using that because it's just a fun phrase. All right, I'm going to maybe work on some of this moss in the background. I'm just using some of my yellow green, some yellow ochre. I might have gone a little bit too much with that. Some cadmium red and with the green. That really should have been all I used. A little bit of the burnt umber, and that would maybe work. No, maybe it doesn't. Back to the green. Back to the green. And it's a bright green moss. So I'm just going to fill that in. And actually, after this, we can start going into the birds. But being lack of time and interest, it's probably best that I work on one of the birds. I'll block in one bird, and then I'll start working on. I'll block in both birds, but I'll start working specifically on the one. I'm using some cadmium orange, some burnt sienna, and I'm just going to lay down some of this the bird to the left. Because working from dark to light, you know, with oils you can't work from light to dark because first of all you muddy up your thinner for one. For two, it gets a little rough kind of putting your darks in. I mean, it all depends on the technique that you use. Everyone has a different technique, and that's all fine and dandy. But I prefer working from dark to light because it really is a very big help to the artist, me. All right, and sometimes you lose what's happening with your form. I'm just going to go with some purple. Actually, there's a lot of blue in that second seagull, that pelican. So I'm just going to try to, like I said, block in. While I continue painting, let's take a look. Let's take another look at the inlet. Welcome back, folks. I'm working on the second pelican here. I kind of want to put a little bit more information in the second pelican because I want to leave you guys with a taste of what's to come. This should be a good finish, and coming in next week, if you tune in next week to see the finish, it should be a good one. Like I said, I like having subject matter to work from. Yeah, I'm into nature, but and the landscapes of Florida, it is beautiful. But anytime I can have some interest outside of that, it's cool too. All right, I'm just it's funny how the feathers they're just so waxy kind of. So just trying to get the coloring for that. It's a hard one to go with. So I'm just taking some of the dioxazine purple, some raw umber, and maybe a little bit of the this Indian red. Actually, that's bright red or Venetian red. So I'm gonna try. I'm gonna put a little bit more yellow in there. Something's missing with that. It's kind of very brownish, but like I said, I'm working dark to light, so it'll adjust as I go along. Go with the yellow ochre. Seems like it's a very favorite. It's a favorite color of mine. It's very applicable in so many different ways. All right, there's some blue in there. So I'm just, like I said, I'm blocking in, but I'm also trying to work on getting somewhat close to the color related to the element itself. Now this the purple. I'm working with the purple and seeing what happens. I'm not working with the three-dimensional aspect of this just yet. In time, that will come. I'm going back to some color that I had just previously mixed, and I'm going to try to get a little lighter with that. More yellow. And sometimes, don't ever be afraid to scrub. Scrubbing is fine. It's allowed. Because you put a brush stroke down doesn't mean it has to stay. So with oil painting, it's very forgiving and it's always subject to change. So there's no crime in that at all. And work on the pelican's beak. Now I'm more concerned with shapes, as I've been saying. Shapes will get me will get me to the promised land. It'll get me where I need to go. All right, so that's good. I'm just going to work on the web feet, and I think we're at a good point where we can jump off at or from. I'm going to jump off these rocks. Well, that's all the time we have. I want to thank you guys for checking out the show. Come back next week and visit, come wandering with us again. If you didn't get your questions answered, please email me at wdsc@daytonastateedu.com. Come back next week to see the finished study of Sebastian Inlet and wander with me again as we continue painting Florida.